Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Paula, and on this channel we break down what's happening in crypto without the fluff, but also without pretending everything is just candles and hopium. Because if you actually want to understand where crypto is going, you've got to understand what it's becoming. And today we're talking about the part of crypto that most people still don't respect because it's not exciting. It doesn't have a cult ticker. It doesn't do 10x memes, and it doesn't trend on crypto Twitter, but it's quietly becoming the most important thing in the entire market: stablecoins. And I want to be open with something that sounds almost too mad to be true, but it's exactly the direction we're heading in. When crypto becomes part of global trade settlement, it stops being just speculation and becomes financial infrastructure. Now, a quick disclaimer before we get into this. This video is for education and entertainment, not financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy anything, sell anything, or do anything. I'm here to connect dots, show you the bigger picture, and let you make your own decisions. Right, let's talk about what stablecoins really are and why they matter. Because I think most people hear stablecoin and they think, oh, that's just what traders park money in during volatility. And yes, that is one use. But that's not the story anymore. The story now is stablecoins are becoming the digital version of dollars, moving around the world instantly outside of the normal banking rails. And when you understand that, you start to see why Venezuela and Iran keep coming up. Stablecoins are basically crypto tokens pegged to something stable, usually the US dollar. The big ones are USDT and USDC. And the reason they've exploded isn't because people suddenly fell in love with blockchain. It's because they do one simple thing better than the traditional system. They move dollar value globally 24/7 without needing permission from a bank. No waiting days. No, your payment is pending. No, we need more documents. No random bank compliance freeze because your transaction looked weird. And if you live in London or New York, you might not feel how important that is. But if you live in a country with inflation, capital controls, sanctions, or broken banks, stablecoins aren't a crypto product. They're a survival tool. Now, here's where the story gets spicy. Because stablecoins aren't just helping ordinary people. They're also being used by entire governments and major state industries to keep money moving. And that's the bit you can't ignore, because it tells you stablecoins aren't a trend. They're a structural shift. So let's start with Venezuela, because it's the cleanest example of stablecoins becoming part of real-world trade settlement. Venezuela's state oil company, PDVSA, has been under heavy US sanction pressures for years. And when you're sanctioned, you get cut off from normal ways to move money. Correspondent banking, swift rails, easy dollar clearing, low friction international payments. And if you're selling oil, the most geopolitical commodity on earth, you still need to get paid. So what happens? You get a parallel system, middlemen, intermediaries, complex routing, and increasingly stablecoins. Over the last couple of years, multiple reports have described how stablecoins like Tether's USDT became central to Venezuelan oil trade settlement, including claims that a very large share of PDVSA's oil revenue has been routed through stablecoins. Now, I want to be careful with numbers because different reports frame this differently and there's always hype mixed in. But what matters is the direction. Stablecoins are being used not as a side tool, but as part of settlement plumbing. And here's the twist. Stablecoins aren't fully censorship resistant. Tether can freeze addresses, including moves tied to enforcement actions connected to Venezuelan sanctions. Even in the last couple of days, there's been reporting around Tether freezing large sums, described as part of crackdowns connected to illicit use. And those stories directly reference the Venezuela oil context. So you've got this strange dynamic. Venezuela uses USDT because it's liquid, global and fast. Tether cooperates with enforcement and can freeze funds. which then pushes sanctioned actors to evolve again, using intermediaries, switching rails, swapping into other assets. And this right here is the first major theme of the stablecoin era. Stablecoins create a parallel financial system, and then the parallel system immediately starts playing cat and mouse with enforcement. But zoom out. What does it mean if oil, the most important global trade commodity, can be settled through stablecoins? It means something huge. It means crypto isn't waiting for mainstream adoption. It's being adopted where the traditional system is weakest or most restrictive. And once a payment rail exists, it doesn't disappear. It improves. It gets more efficient. It gets more professional. And it spreads. Now let's take a look at that same theme and look at Iran. Because Iran shows the other side of the same stablecoin story. Iran has been living under sanction pressures for a long time. And when you're sanctioned, your problem isn't how do we speculate? Your problem is how do we pay for imports? How do we sell what we produce? How do we move money without getting blocked? And Iran has been experimenting with crypto as part of that puzzle for years, including formal policy moves allowing the use of digital currencies for import payments. Back in 2022, Iran's Trade Ministry approved using digital currency for import payments, and that was widely reported as a meaningful step in using crypto to bypass traditional rails. Now, that doesn't mean Iran just openly uses Binance on a government laptop. It means crypto becomes part of the wider network of intermediaries, offshore structures, and alternative settlement methods. And here's where the story gets really current. In January 2026, TRM Labs released findings describing how two UK-registered entities were allegedly involved in moving around $1 billion in stablecoins linked to Iran's IRGC, largely using USDT on Tron, and this reporting has been picked up by major outlets. Now, whatever you think politically, from a market structure standpoint, this matters for two reasons. Number one, stablecoins are liquid enough to move serious size. This isn't send somebody $2,000. We're talking about scale that shows stablecoins can function as a high throughput settlement tool. And number two, the background shifts from crypto is risky to crypto is infrastructure. Because once stablecoins are used for real trade flows, legal or illegal, the pressure ramps up. Regulators stop treating crypto like a casino and start treating it like a payment system. That's why you see stablecoin regulation accelerating now. And that's why stablecoin issuers are trying to look more like regulated institutions. Even in the US, we've seen major regulatory movement recently, including reporting about new market structure legislation being introduced and also provisions that touch stablecoin rewards and banking concerns. And separately, there's been reporting around the Genius Act being signed into law, establishing a federal framework for payment stablecoins. Again, zoom out. When the law gets involved, it's not because politicians suddenly care about your alt bags. It's because stablecoins are starting to intersect with bank deposits, payment networks, sanctions enforcement, trade settlement, monetary sovereignty, and that leads to the biggest uncomfortable truth in this whole story. The stablecoin era might actually strengthen the dollar, not weaken it, because most stablecoins are dollar pegged. Even when countries use stablecoins to bypass the US-led system, they often end up using it, digital dollars. A Bank de France publication makes this exact point. Crypto-based trade settlement can bypass banking rails while still enforcing dollar preeminence because so many stablecoins are USD-based. That's such a mind bender, isn't it? The anti-dollar workaround becomes the new form of dollarization. So why do Venezuela and Iran keep showing up? Because stablecoins solve three problems at once. Speed. International wires can take days, especially through intermediaries. Stablecoins settle fast, often minutes. Access. If your banking access is limited or monitored, stablecoins route around it. And three, certainty. If your local currency is collapsing, stablecoins preserve value in a unit people trust more than their own money. And it's not just governments. Ordinary people use them too. In high inflation environments, people don't want to hold a collapsing local currency. They want something stable. If you can't easily get physical dollars, you get digital dollars. And stablecoins are digital dollars. And that brings us to the next chapter of the story, the part that makes this bigger than sanctions. Because while stablecoins are exploding in the parallel economy, they're also quietly being integrated into the mainstream at the same time. Now here's what changes everything. If this was only about sanctions evasion, the stablecoin story would end with crackdowns and restrictions. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is the opposite. Big institutions are building stablecoin settlement infrastructure. Visa has publicly announced stablecoin settlement expansion, including USDC settlement for US institutions. And they've shared figures around annualized settlement volume from these pilots. Barclays, yes, Barclays has invested in a stablecoin settlement company called Ubix, which is literally about clearing and settlement between stablecoins from different issuers. Polygon is buying payments and infrastructure companies as it pivots towards stablecoin transaction demand, explicitly positioning itself around the post-regulation environment. So, stablecoins are being used in shadow flows and also being built into regulated finance. That means stablecoins are not being banned out of existence. They're being absorbed, they're being standardized, and they're being professionalized. And once that happens, the end game isn't stablecoins as a crypto tool. The end game is stablecoins as a global settlement layer that sits alongside or underneath existing payment networks. Which leads to the next question. If stablecoins become normal, what happens to crypto as a whole? This is where we need to start zooming out and connecting the dots. Stablecoins change crypto's future in at least 5 big ways. They bring real users, not just traders. The most underrated thing about stablecoins is that they create crypto users who don't care about crypto culture. They just want to move money. That grows wallets, on-chain activity, and infrastructure demand. And once people are on-chain for stablecoins, they're one step away from everything else. They force regulation, which then unlocks bigger capital. Stablecoins touch payments and banking, so regulators have to engage. That's literally why you're seeing all this movement around stablecoin law and market structure bills. They create the picks and shovels boom. If stablecoins are the settlement layer, then the winners aren't just stablecoins. It's custody, compliance tooling, on-off ramps, payment processors, settlement networks, identity layers, tokenization rails. That's why Barclays investing in settlement infrastructure matters. It's a bet that stablecoins are not a fad, they're plumbing. Stablecoins intensify the battle over censorship and control. Stablecoins are programmable money. Issuers can freeze funds. Governments can pressure issuers. That creates a split in the market. Regulated stablecoins designed to comply, decentralized alternatives that people use when they don't want compliance. And that tension will define the next decade. Stablecoins turn crypto into geopolitics. The stablecoin story isn't tech, it's power, it's sanctions, it's trade, it's monetary sovereignty. And that means stablecoins aren't just competing with PayPal, they're competing with systems. And when you compete with systems, you attract both adoption and resistance. So the uncomfortable paradox, stablecoins weaken systems but strengthen the dollar. Let's sit in this for a second because it is one of the most important ideas in all of crypto. Countries use stablecoins to bypass the traditional US influenced financial system, but most stablecoins are pegged to the US dollar. So even as they bypass SWIFT, they still transact in dollars, just on chain. That's why central bank researchers have highlighted that stablecoin usage can reinforce dollar dominance, even while bypassing traditional banking infrastructure. So the future might look like this: less reliance on US banks, less reliance on SWIFT, but continued reliance on the dollar unit, which again is such a strange outcome. And it means if you're watching stablecoins purely through a crypto moon lens, you're missing the actual impact. Stablecoins may be the mechanism that makes crypto acceptable to institutions, while also making parts of crypto more controllable. That's the trade-off: speed and access versus censorship risk. Now, if you're sat there thinking, okay, Paula, but how does this affect the market? Here's how I think about it. Stablecoins are the base layer of liquidity. When stablecoin supply grows, liquidity tends to be healthier. When stablecoin rails integrate with payments, the distance between real economy and crypto economy shrinks. And when that happens, crypto stops being a niche market that trades against itself and starts being plugged into business flows. We're already seeing public numbers and commentary around stablecoins becoming core infrastructure for payment volume at scale in industry. And now we're seeing major networks like Visa expanding settlement capabilities. So the long-term bet isn't that stablecoins pump. The long-term bet is stablecoins make the whole ecosystem more real, more connected, more useful. And when something becomes useful, it becomes harder to get rid of. But I also want to be honest, this isn't a fairy tale. Stablecoins also bring the harshest spotlight, because where there's money movement, there's illicit finance attempts. And where there's illicit finance attempts, there's regulation, enforcement, freezes, blacklists, and pressure. That's why this stablecoin era is going to be defined by a tug-of-war. Adoption versus control, freedom versus compliance, speed versus surveillance. And the outcome of that tug-of-war shapes the long-term future of crypto. Now, I'm going to say something that a lot of people don't want to hear. If stablecoins become the world's settlement layer, then crypto becomes less Wild West and more financial system. And when that happens, self-custody stops being a niche ideology and becomes basic risk management. Because the more money flows through stablecoins, the more account freezes happen, the more exchanges get stricter, the more compliance ramps up, the more access becomes conditional. So if you're participating in crypto, you need to think about custody. And this is where I naturally mentioned Tangem, because I actually use them and I only talk about products I use myself. If you want a simple self-custody setup that doesn't feel like you need a computer science degree, Tangem is one of the easiest ways to hold your crypto yourself. And I've negotiated a discount with Tangem, especially for my community. So on top of any discounts on their website, you can also add in my code Paula at the checkout for an extra 10% off. And no, that's not me telling you what to buy. It's just me reminding you that in the stablecoin era, ownership and access are not always the same thing. So let's tie this whole story together. Venezuela shows stablecoins being used to keep oil revenues moving under sanction pressure, and it shows the cat and mouse dynamic of enforcement and freezes. Iran shows how sanction networks build alternative rails at scale, including recent reporting around stablecoin flows linked to the IRGC. At the same time, banks and payment giants are building legitimate settlement infrastructure. Barclays investing in stablecoin settlement, Visa expanding settlement, Polygon pivoting into stablecoin payments infrastructure. That combination tells you the future. Stablecoins are becoming the bridge between crypto and the real economy. And once that bridge is built, crypto is no longer just an asset class. It's a rail, it's plumbing, it's infrastructure. And infrastructure has consequences. It reshapes power. It reshapes regulation. It reshapes markets. And it forces everyone, governments, banks, companies, ordinary people, to pick a position. So that's the stablecoin story. But I want to throw this back to you. Do you think stablecoins becoming normal is good for freedom? Or does it make crypto more controllable? And do you think the end game is a world where stablecoins replace bank transfers? Or a world where banks adopt stablecoins and just wrap the old system in the new tech? Drop your take in the comments. I read them all and I pin the best ones. And as always, if you want to know the exact strategies we use to make money in both the bull market and the bear market, we've made a completely free course for you. The link is in the description below. If you found this useful, make sure you like the video, subscribe and turn on the notifications, because the next few weeks in crypto are moving fast. And I'll keep breaking it down in plain English. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.